I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galain in Tel Aviv.
You simply cannot claim we live in a real democracy if Donald Trump, with the financial backing of 3 Israeli billionaires who Trump himself admitted care more about Israel than the United States, can effectively buy a congressional seat. It's especially egregious when that seat belongs to a man like Thomas Massie, who has had the backbone to oppose genocide, who played a key role in getting the Epstein files released, and who consistently pushes back against Donald Trump's illegal, unnecessary, and immoral wars. You cannot call this a functioning democracy when tens of millions of dollars are enough to purchase a seat in Congress, but unfortunately that is exactly what happened tonight. In a deeply disappointing turn of events, Thomas Massie has narrowly, and that narrowly part is crucial, lost his primary election to Trump's hand-picked challenger Ed Galain. We are going to dive into how Massie responded to this defeat, what he is saying about the real reasons behind it, and what this means for the future of the Republican Party, their ties to the Israel lobby, and the ongoing investigation into the Epstein files. But I want to start with Marjorie Taylor Greene's performance this morning. She was making a case against Donald Trump from the right, and to me it signals that even though Massie lost this battle, the war is far from over. We are going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now before we get to Massie's response, which honestly should have Donald Trump terrified, we have to look at what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say.
So I just saw a video where President Trump is claiming that Thomas Massie votes for men and women's sports and votes for transing kids and all of this insane garbage. That the president is unfortunately lying about Thomas Massie. And here's a quick story for you guys. I thought this was worth sharing. President Trump is going this week, actually, to Mike Lawler's district in New York in support of Mike Lawler. Well, here's some facts. Mike Lawler hated Donald Trump, hated him when he was running for president. Used to make fun of him all the time, mocked him, would come up and make fun of me for supporting the president. Well, I thought you guys should know, if you really want to know about voting records, it was Mike Lawler and 3 other Republicans that voted no to my bill, Protect Children's Innocence Act, that actually makes it a felony to perform gender-affirming care on children, anybody under the age of 18, which, by the way, is one of the president's executive orders. It's a big deal to President Trump. Well, Mike Lawler voted no to my bill, which is taking a hard stance against President Trump and his executive order. And Thomas Massie voted yes for my bill, which is in support of President Trump's executive order and in support of stopping gender-affirming care, transing of children. So the more you know, the more truth you hear, the better you are able to see exactly what's going on. Get out and vote for Thomas Massie.
This is Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to run to the right, effectively claiming that he isn't a real Republican because he isn't being transphobic enough and because he's endorsing candidates who don't fit her extreme mold. But Thomas Massie was different. He wasn't just playing a game of being more right-wing or more left-wing or simply siding with Democrats for the sake of it. Thomas Massie was a man who, while I had plenty of disagreements with him, actually had principles that drove his decisions in Congress. There's that famous clip where he points out that he votes with Republicans 91% of the time, and that other 9% is because they're doing things like blowing trillions on an illegal war or going to bat for predators. That is the essence of Thomas Massie, and it is a genuine shame that an actual principled member of Congress, again a guy I certainly have policy clashes with, has lost his seat. It has been officially confirmed by the Hill. We all know the real reason why Thomas Massie lost a major victory. I want to read this official reporting confirming the results, and then we are going to dive deep into exactly what happened. Although this is a big victory for Donald Trump, Thomas Massie is still going to get more than 40% of the vote in this primary. And that should really scare Donald Trump, that even with all the money spent, it was that close. But who was the money spent by? Well, that was the important point that Thomas Massie wanted to make, and he did right here.
I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galain in Tel Aviv.
Thomas Massie is 100% right. This heat was bought and paid for by Israel. It's why he said that when he calls to concede, he'll be calling Tel Aviv, because it was Israeli billionaires like Miriam Adelson and Paul Singer, both connected to Jeffrey Epstein by the way, who wanted him out of office, and why? Because he had the courage to oppose a genocide. They tried to smear him as an anti-Semite for it, even though Thomas Massie has consistently opposed all foreign aid and all foreign wars. The media spinning this as a specific attack on Israel is just wild. This has been a very deliberate effort and a very clear failure to scare people out of talking about anything related to Israel's genocide. Now I want to get into the implications for the Epstein files, so stick around for that. People talk about money in politics all the time, but they usually focus on who is getting the money, who gets AIPAC cash, who gets crypto money. But what's more important is who spends against you. That's what we saw in the Illinois primaries and in Kat Abigail's race. Not money to buy a candidate, but money used to destroy one. The Israel lobby doesn't go into a race and say Thomas Massie isn't pro-Israel enough, because they know that would actually get in more votes. Instead, they have to manufacture lies, misconstrue statements, and do whatever it takes to scare voters or prop up an opponent like Ed Galain. That tells you exactly how these people understand our politics. Even they know, by omission, that unconditional support for Israel is no longer the popular sentiment. So when their hacks in the media, their Zionist-aligned outlets, or the Larry Ellison-built algorithms call us anti-Semitic for saying what everyone already feels, remember, they are desperate. You should be talking about this more with your friends and family. Maybe keep it a little hush-hush at work. Like, hey, I watched this podcast. It's this guy with a lot of thoughts on the world. You should check him out. Just slide it across the cubicle and say, shh, don't let Netanyahu see this. They understand the reality because they aren't running ads, bragging about how much they love Israel. They know that wouldn't work. So how is it anti-Semitic for us to just point out the truth? We should end our relationship with Israel. We should sanction them. Benjamin Netanyahu and that entire government are full of war criminals and genocidal maniacs. We should sever those ties. So does carefully consider actually just mean finally doing what you knew was right all along? Because what a pathetic move by Bill Cassidy. Honestly, this is just incredibly sad. He's essentially saying, well, now that I'm no longer beholden to Donald Trump, I guess I'll finally vote my conscience. It's an admission that he's been lying with his votes this entire time. He knew this war was a sham and that we had no business being in it. But the second he realized he couldn't win re-election, suddenly he's ready to concede the point. That is completely humiliating for Bill Cassidy. That is your legacy, Bill. That and your vote for RFK Jr. The fact that you lose your primary and immediately wake up proves you deserve zero credit. You're a coward, plain and simple. I'm just embarrassed for these people. But look, speaking of cowardly behavior, Donald Trump just made an announcement about his war that should surprise absolutely no one considering how disastrously it's going.
What's so wrong about helping defend Israel from Iranian threats?
We've got debt. I mean, at least with NATO, there's the promise of a reciprocal arrangement. With Israel, it's completely one way. And they've drug us into wars. They've convinced us that Iran is just days away from a nuclear weapon, and they're perpetually that way. This is not our war. Israel, for instance, funds abortions publicly. I think a lot of Republicans would be aghast to know that we're giving $3.8 billion a year, every year, to a country that funds public abortions.
Thomas Massie is right. He is absolutely right. And tonight, he has been turned into a martyr by Donald Trump, the Epstein class, and the Israel First crowd. These people are finally showing their true faces to the world. A lot of Republicans are going to wake up to this reality tomorrow, and honestly, I hope a lot of Democrats do too. If we want money out of our politics, if we don't want these massive AIPAC ad spends dictating our elections, then we have to wake up. Thomas Massie was a maverick in the Republican Party. Even if we didn't agree on everything, I think we all had respect for his principles. If we want that kind of compelling, principled leadership in the Democratic Party, it's going to take fighting back against the dark money and the corporate interests that own our system. I'm looking at you, Ken Martin. I'm looking at you, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and Kirsten Gillibrand. It is time to get the dark money out of our house. This should be the permanent stain on the Republican brand. You break with Trump, you break with Israel, you break with the billionaires of the Epstein class, and they kick you out. We should be using this moment against them just as much as Massie will. In the long run, this might prove to be even more damaging to Donald Trump than a Massie victory would have been. We already knew his presidency was effectively overheading into the midterms, but this might be worse for him. You know what? I'm calling it. This is worse. Massie as the martyr, Massie with even more firepower behind him, Massie potentially running for president tomorrow. Who knows? That's my conclusion. Maybe it sounds like a bit of copium, but I truly believe this backfires on Trump. I'm going to keep talking myself into that because it actually makes sense. If you all want to support this channel and the fight we're bringing every day, as always, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video. If you stuck around with me until the very end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'm Liam Prescott, and I'll see you in the next one.